She was just an invisible nurse humiliated in the hospital hallways. But she kept a secret. She studied quietly, waiting for the moment destiny would finally bring her chance. And when that moment came, her courage saved a life and changed her own forever. Subscribe to the channel. Here, the invisible becomes an inspiration. If I tell you a secret, do you promise to listen till the end? Because, believe me, there are stories that start in humiliation and end in applause. In the cold hallways of St. Patrick's Hospital, Meridith Torres walked quietly, head held high. "It's gonna work out," she whispered to herself, not knowing who might be listening. She was the surgical nurse who was never late and never made a mistake. And yet no one remembered her name at the coffee table. That hurts, I know. It's the pain of being invisible in the very place where you shine. But she took a deep breath and pushed through another double shift. She thought about her sick mother waiting for the cheap medicine. She thought about the rent due marked on her worn-out planner. She thought about the white coat she still didn't wear. "Focus, Mary," she'd mutter, squeezing her faded ID badge. That was her routine. Efficiency, silence, repetition. Humiliation wasn't the end, it was stored fuel. And destiny, my friend, loves to test those who burn from within. Meridith learned early that a hospital is both stage and backstage. On the stage, the doctors; behind the scenes, the ones who make the show possible. She knew every clamp like family, the weight, the click, the precision, almost music. Kelly's scalpel 10, someone would call, and she'd already be handing it over. Without looking, steady, like dancing in the dark. We think luck shouts, but sometimes luck is silence. Between one call and another, her heart was rewriting its goals. It wasn't about getting rich, it was about becoming needed. About honoring her mother, paying the bills, keeping the lights on. "One day I'll study medicine," she'd whisper, more to believe than to declare. And the hospital answered with closed doors and long last names. Humiliation there came dressed in crisp white coats and short smiles. But hidden in the routine was a lesson. Consistency is also courage. And consistency, that kind of courage, changes maps. When the night shift dragged on, Meridith became a student without enrollment. Anatomy books open, phone flashlight on. Surgery videos paused at the exact frame of the suture. "Breathe, slow down, repeat," she'd whisper, practicing with a pen in hand. Her neighbor in 402 said that was dreaming too big. The world loves to measure your dreams with a broken ruler. But she kept going, weak coffee, aching knees, tired eyes. Without knowing, she was already more of a surgeon in spirit than many with degrees. Humiliation knocked on her door. Study answered with discipline. And each turned page pushed her one step closer to the light. "The body speaks, Mary. Learn to listen," she'd recall from an article. She took notes, crossed procedures, memorized risks. Her ambition wasn't a secret, it was a quiet promise. Not to be rich, but to be a bridge between pain and healing. And those who understand pain understand urgency. In the cafeteria, the talk was always the same. Complicated cases, fancy conferences, year-end trips, and "You, Meridith, any plans?" They'd ask, already looking away. "Keep learning," she'd reply, simple, without drama. She knew the weight of words thrown at distracted audiences. She knew that validation there came attached to surnames. But she also knew that true excellence never stays unnoticed for long. The secret was not to lose her heart while mastering her craft. Humiliation tries to steal your shine. She didn't let it. With every shift, she collected invisible micro-victories. A perfect dressing, a clamp handed just in time, a look that calmed someone down. "Thank you, Mary," a patient whispered weakly. Those thank yous paid debts her paycheck never could. And they held a simple truth. Being seen begins with seeing others. Remember that it'll matter when the spotlight turns her way. The doctors passed by, quick steps, Latin terms. "Prep the room, Meridith," and she was already a step ahead. She set the table like a sacred puzzle. Every instrument in its place, every gauze ready for its moment. That kind of care is more than habit. It's a silent vow. Humiliation loses power where excellence becomes routine. "Carter hates delays," someone whispered. "So do I," she replied, half smiling. She noticed how respect arrives quietly, but it does arrive. It comes when the whole room sings in sync under her coordination. It comes when others' fear meets her calm. "All good, team?" And the yes came firm and steady. Without realizing, she was already leading, without a leader's badge. And that taught a precious lesson. Authority is posture, not title. Remember that line? It'll one day break the silence. Her mother called her a girl of faith. "God sees you, my daughter," she'd say, fixing her blanket. And being seen, that's all the invisible ever wanted. Between counted pills and stacked bills, the world pressed tight, but she stretched without breaking. "One day, Mom, I'll wear the white coat," she'd promised steady. And her mother would laugh, that kind of laugh that blesses. Humiliation was a frequent visitor. Hope was a permanent resident. She learned to turn exhaustion into discipline. She learned to convert pain into focus. She learned above all that miracles love a persistent address. "Daughter, your lesson is never give up," her mother would repeat. And those who have an anchor phrase don't sink easily. Each shift was a step, each night, a seed. And seeds bloom where you keep watering, even when no one's watching. In the supply room there was a silence that felt like church. Meridith checked expiration dates, sharpened her focus, organized trays. "If anything's missing, it's on me," she said, calm, accountable. Responsibility is the hospital's most expensive currency. Humiliation doesn't survive where people take ownership of their work. "Mary, why so much precision?" a tired resident asked. "Because on the other side, there's someone who's scared," she replied without hesitation. That sentence drifted through the halls, soft as warm wind. Without realizing it, she was teaching more than any conference slide ever could. The lesson was simple: technique saves, but humanity keeps you safe. And she blended both the way someone stitches skin, with patience and care. "Let's go, people," she called, bringing the team into rhythm. The hospital, which pretended not to notice her, was starting to take notes. And when a hospital starts to take notes, the story begins to shift. Except good turns usually show up at the most unlikely hour. There are days when even the clock seems to hold its breath. It was one of those days when the air grew heavier than usual. A sudden call, running footsteps, slamming doors. "Room 3 now." The hallway split in two. Meridith felt a chill down her neck, but kept walking steady. Humiliation? It stayed outside for a few minutes. Inside, only preparation and pulse mattered. Checklist verified, table set, team aligned, she murmured aloud. Her heart was racing, but her hands stayed steady. "It's gonna work, Mary," she whispered back to herself. "You train all your life for this exact moment. And when it comes, it doesn't ask if you're ready. It just happens. Dry, sharp, without warning." Without knowing, Meridith was one step away from her Chapter 2. And you know how Chapter 2s are. They always come at a cost. Before opening the operating room door, she thought of the white coat, not as vanity, but as purpose. Getting rich was never the plan. Being needed was. "If I save one life, it's all worth it," she murmured. Her dreams had simple names, but powerful impact. Firm legs, focused eyes, mental checklist in sync. The team saw her as a cog. She saw herself as a bridge. "All set," she announced, breathing in time with the monitor. The beat became the soundtrack of battle. Humiliation shrank beside the size of her calling. "Let's do our best," she said, almost a prayer. "And I need you to feel this. When courage enters the room, everything changes. Eyes align, hands obey. Even the air finds direction. That's the lesson. The world pays attention when you pay attention. Now listen closely. That sound inside? That's destiny pulling up a chair." Meridith pushed open the door. The cold metal brushed her skin. The hospital director, unknowingly, was the patient on the table. And the head of cardiology, famous for his steady hands, was adjusting his gloves. "Full focus, everyone," a firm voice commanded. She positioned the tray, checked the light, confirmed access. It was supposed to be just another surgery, at least by the book. But some days the script rips itself up and writes a new one. "Meridith, keep to the rhythm," said a confident voice. "Always," she replied, calm spark in her eyes. The monitors kept time with the impossible. Even humiliation fell silent, as if paying respect. And the secret of this entire story stood quietly in the corner, waiting. "Maintain pressure," someone warned, noticing an irregularity. A bead of cold sweat shifted the rhythm of the beep, and in a blink the whole scene turned upside down. That tense morning, St. Patrick seemed to be holding its breath. The patient's name spread like wildfire. Dr. Jonathan Reed, hospital director, top authority. A resume heavy enough to crush egos. The surgical team had been handpicked, precision jewels on display. At the center of the board, Dr. William Carter, chief of cardiology. Cold, sharp, respected, and the focus of every cautious glance. Meridith entered quietly, feeling the weight of the moment. "Standard cardiac setup ready," she reported, voice steady. There was an old secret in her eyes, preparation without spotlight. Humiliation doesn't wear a badge, but she recognized its steps. She adjusted the lights, arranged the gauze, checked the suction. The clock, cruel as ever, carved seconds into the wall like an invisible scalpel. Total concentration, someone said, the words echoing like a bell. The air smelled of latex, alcohol, and expectation. Everyone knew there was no room for mistakes here. Carter entered a minute late, yet owned the room instantly. "Good morning, team," he said, gauging every look in the room. His presence filled the space like a rising tide in a narrow corridor. Meridith checked the derivation and perfusion lines. "All confirmed," she replied, voice metronomic. Silence here spoke louder than any long speech. Without realizing it, every movement she made was writing her future, a future that couldn't fit on her nurse's badge. The sting of humiliation faded whenever her skills shone. "Stop whispering," Carter snapped, pointing out minute details. The director was brought in, sedated, wires crossing under the light. The monitor's beep kept the rhythm of a heart surrounded by machines. Today's lesson, Meridith thought, do the simple things perfectly. Simple doesn't mean easy, it means essential. And essential was exactly what she longed to be. The protocol played out like a choreography everyone knew by heart. "Heparin ready," said the anesthesiologist, eyes fixed on the screen. "Circulator, check clamps, wires, blade replacements," ordered Carter. Meridith was already 2 steps ahead, almost predicting the sequence. "Scalpel 10 ready, backup blade set," she responded. A nervous resident cracked a shaky smile. "Breathe, kid," she whispered sisterly. "Fear has a smell, and that day it was thick as ether." Without realizing, her calm was the antidote the room needed. The director lay motionless, maybe hearing their silent prayers. "Let's begin," Carter announced, and the air grew heavier. The whine of the saw stayed outside. Inside, it was all pulse and precision. With every instrument passed, the room found a new rhythm. The clock was still cruel, but now it obeyed their hands. And Meridith's hands spoke a fluent, calm, razor-sharp language. The ventilator drew mountain ranges on the screen. Anesthesia flowed like a disciplined river beneath the skin. "Pressure stable, saturation okay," the anesthesiologist confirmed. Carter leaned in, eagle eyes, breath restrained. "Scalpel," he said, and metal met destiny. Meridith followed the incision's path like a violinist following melody. "Debakey clamp, please," she was already holding it out. "Excellent," Carter nodded, a rare gesture of approval. The team relaxed 0.5 millimeter. Dangerous but human. The trick was never to confuse relief with carelessness, lesson from countless shifts, too much confidence cuts too. Meridith kept her eyes on the field, anchored in purpose. Humiliation can't enter where the mind is occupied with meaning. "Suction," he ordered, and the vacuum brought clarity back to view. The director's heart seemed to remember why it beat. Outside, journalists waited for scraps of news. Inside, the news was being written with hands, wires, and silence. "Clamp," Carter commanded, no room for theatrics. "Clamp," she echoed, precise, almost choreographed. She thought of her mother. The medicine, the rent that refused to wait. She thought about the word millionaire, and smiled inside the right way. To her, being rich meant having time, and her books paid for. To be seen without asking, to be called by name, without permission. Flow decreasing, warned the perfusionist, tense. "Adjusting," said Carter, but a shadow crossed his face. Meridith noticed before the others his breathing had changed. "Doctor, are you all right?" she asked, without breaking rhythm. "Focus on the field," he shot back, rigid. The monitor's tone shifted, thin, sharp, like glass about to crack, and the room, once solid, began to creak from within. In the supply room, there was a silence that felt like church. Meridith checked expiration dates, sharpened her focus, organized trays. "If anything's missing, the fault is mine," she said, steady. "Responsibility is the hospital's most expensive currency. Humiliation can't withstand someone who owns their work." "Mary, why so much precision?" a tired resident asked. "Because on the other side there's someone who's afraid," she answered without hesitation. That line moved through the corridors softly like warm wind. Without knowing it, she taught more than many conference slides. The lesson was simple. Technique saves, but humanity keeps you safe. And she wove both together the way you stitch skin, with patience. "Let's move, people." She pulled the team into the right tempo. The hospital that pretended not to notice started taking note. And when a hospital takes note, the story starts to turn. Only good turns usually arrive at the most unlikely hour. Some days the clock seems to hold its breath. It was on one of those days that the air got heavier than usual. An urgent call, running feet, doors slamming. Room 3 now, and the hallway split in two. Meridith felt a chill at the nape of her neck but walked in steady. Humiliation? It stayed outside for a few minutes. In there, only preparation and pulse mattered. Checklist verified, table set, team aligned, she said aloud. Her heart sped up, but her hands stayed steady. It's going to be fine, Mary, she answered herself. We train a lot for this exact instant, and when the instant arrives, it doesn't ask if you're ready. It just happens, dry, final, without asking permission. Without knowing it, Meridith was a step from her own Chapter 2. And Chapter 2s, tend to come at a price. Before opening the door, she remembered the white coat, not as vanity, but as purpose. Being a millionaire was never the plan. Being necessary was. If I save one life, that pays for everything, she murmured. Her dreams had simple names and big impact. Steady legs, centered gaze, a mental checklist. The team saw her as a cog. She saw herself as a bridge. All set, she announced, breathing with the monitor's rhythm. The beep turned into battle music. Humiliation shrank in the face of the calling. Let's do our best, she said, almost a prayer. And I need you to feel this. When courage walks in, the room changes. Eyes line up, hands obey, the air finds direction. That's the lesson. The world pays attention when you pay attention. Now listen to the sound inside. It's destiny pulling up a chair. Meridith pushed the door and the cold metal touched her skin. The hospital director unknowingly was the patient on the table. And the head of cardiology, famous for steady hands, was fitting his gloves. Full focus, everyone, someone said. Firm. She set the tray, checked the lights, verified access. It was just another surgery, the protocols said. But there are days when the script tears itself up and rewrites everything. Meridith, keep to the rhythm, a sure voice asked. Always, she answered, a calm spark in her eyes. The monitors kept the beat of the impossible. Humiliation went quiet, as if it also respected the moment. And the secret of the whole story stood in the corner, waiting. Maintain pressure, someone warned, seeing something off. That's when a cold sweat changed the music of the beep. And in a blink, the scene flipped upside down. On that tense morning, St. Patrick's seemed to hold its breath. The patient's name ran from mouth to mouth. Dr. Jonathan Reed, hospital director, top authority, a resume heavy as a pocket full of stones. The team was hand-picked like jewels in a display case. Center stage, Dr. William Carter, chief of cardiology. Cold, precise, respected, and the target of careful eyes. Meridith walked in quiet, feeling the weight of the moment. Standard cardiac setup ready, she said, voice unshaken. There was an old secret in her gaze, preparation without spotlight. Humiliation doesn't wear a badge, but she knew its footsteps. She adjusted lights, placed sponges, checked the suction. The clock, cruel, scratched the wall like an invisible scalpel. Total concentration, someone said, like a bell. The air smelled of latex, alcohol, and expectation. Everyone knew no one could fail there. Carter came in a minute late but owned the room. Good morning, team, he said, taking everyone's temperature with his eyes. His presence filled the space like a tide in a narrow hall. Meridith, verify the shunt and perfuser, he asked. Confirmed, she replied, metronome steady. Silence here says more than long speeches. Without knowing it, each of her gestures was a page of her future. The protocol flowed like a choreography everyone knew. Heparin ready, said the anesthesiologist, eyes on the screen. Circulator confirmed, clamps, sutures, blade swaps, Carter. Meridith was 2 steps ahead, almost guessing. Scalpel 10 at hand, backup blade position, she answered. A resident smiled, nervous, cracking his composure. Breathe, kid, she whispered, like a sister. Fear has a smell that day, it was strong as ether. Without knowing, her courage was the missing antidote. The director lay still as if he could hear the team's silent prayer. Let's begin, Carter announced, making the air denser. The whine of the saw stayed outside. In here, it was pulse and precision. With every instrument passed, the room found a new rhythm. The clock was still cruel, but now it obeyed their hands. And Meridith's hands spoke a sharp, calm language. The ventilator drew mountain ranges on the monitor. Anesthesia ran like a disciplined river under the skin. Pressure stable, SAT's okay, confirmed the anesthesiologist. Carter leaned in, eagle-eyed, breath held. Scalpel, he asked, and metal met its destiny. Meridith followed the incision like a violinist follows a line. Debakey, please, and she already had it within reach. Good, Carter nodded, a rare approval. The team relaxed 0.5 millimeter. Dangerous, but human. The secret was not to mistake relief for carelessness. Lesson from endless shifts. Too much confidence cuts, too. Meridith kept her eyes on the field, focused on the essential. Humiliation doesn't enter when the mind is busy with purpose. Suction, the sound cleared the view, and the director's heart seemed to remember why it beat. Outside, journalists waited for crumbs of news. Inside, news was written with wires, hands, and silence. Clamp, Carter asked. No room for drama. Clamp, Meridith returned, nearly choreographed. She thought of her mother, the medicine, the stubborn rent. She thought of the word millionaire and smiled inside the right way. For her, being rich would be time and books paid for. To be seen without asking, to be called by name without a favor. Flow dropping, the perfusionist warned. Tense. Adjusting, Carter said, but a shadow crossed his brow. Meridith noticed before the rest. His breathing turned heavy. Doctor, you okay? She ventured without breaking rhythm. Focus on the field, he shot back, rigid. The beep changed tone, thin as glass about to crack. And the room that felt solid groaned from within. Sweat ran like a cold line down Carter's temple. Suction? He asked, and the word came a beat late. Meridith caught it the way you hear a wall start to crack. The chief's pressure dipped a little. The anesthesiologist whispered. Hydrate, Carter replied, but his voice didn't quite fit. The resident frowned, eyes bouncing from field to surgeon. Meridith reinforced the drapes, he ordered, forcing firmness. Reinforced, she said, keeping the music of her motions. The lesson showed up in disguise. Heroes stumbled too. Without realizing it, everyone took a half step into fear. The air thickened, as if it demanded extra courage. Do you want a break, doctor? The perfusionist asked, careful. No, Carter cut in, breathing shorter. Humiliation loomed like a ghost no one wants to see, and the shadow on his forehead turned into a storm cloud. The director's monitor let out a long, high trill. Artifact, someone said, denying the omen. Confirm leads, Meridith requested. Objective. Connected, came the answer, but the anxiety didn't go back in the pocket. Carter ran a gloved hand over his face, a nervous, forbidden gesture. Focus, doctor, the anesthesiologist called, professional and kind. His breathing climbed a step higher than normal. Scalpel, he asked, but the word tripped over his tongue. Scalpel, Meridith handed it over, eyes split between field and surgeon. Without knowing it, she was carrying the room on the steadiness of her beat. The lesson nipped at their heels. When the leader falters, someone holds the line. Patient's pressure stable, but not for long, a flat warning. Understood, Carter answered, and the understood came short. Humiliation circled like a car horn outside, insistent, and the feeling of a cliff edge pressed against everyone's heels. Water? Carter asked, hoarse, asking for more than water. The resident brought it, hands shaking like leaves in a storm. Breathe, doctor, Meridith said softly without theatrics. She kept a spare scalpel within fingertip reach. The secret of great teams is to anticipate the next step. If needed, I'll take the assist table, she told the perfusionist. Copy, he answered, grateful for a safe harbor. The beep kept perfect time, indifferent to human drama. Count check, she guided, armoring the protocol. Hammered in lesson. In chaos, cling to what's right and repeatable. Meridith, don't take the lead, Carter warned, jealousy admitted. No one's taking it, doctor. I'm keeping the tide steady, she returned. Humiliation smells power and tries to exploit it, but real respect recognizes who's holding the roof in a storm. And that storm that morning seemed to blow the windows open. Carter's face turned lead gray. You're pale, the anesthesiologist said, this time without a filter. I'm fine, he insisted, but the sentence came out crooked. The perfusionist traded a look with Meridith, a silent alarm. Doctor, sit for a moment, she suggested, technical and gentle. Continue, he repeated, pride tripping over his limits. Without knowing, pride is a blade that cuts the hand that holds it. The field demanded quick, firm decisions. Suction, Carter pointed, but his hand missed a beat. Meridith compensated, bringing clarity back to the critical spot. Thank you, he murmured, almost a whisper of surrender. The lesson whispered back, humility saves more than fame. For a second, humiliation got confused with learning, and time, impatient, started pushing it again. That's when the chief really faltered, swaying like an old building. The clang of metal on the floor split the air in two. Carter tried to brace himself, but his legs refused the command. Doctor, the anesthesiologist burst out, her voice lifting half the hospital. The resident lunged forward, arms out, panic in his eyes. Get him away from the field, Meridith ordered, a tone that allowed no debate. Director's pressure holding, but the scenario's unstable, the monitor warned. She swept the table with the eyes of someone who's memorized a map. I'll take control of the field for now, she said, firm. You, the resident gasped, split between fear and awe. Me, she answered without a flicker, posture of someone who's trained 1,000 times. Without knowing it, the room had just found a new orbit. Lesson carved into flesh. When no one knows what to do, someone has to know. Humiliation slipped out the door, shoved by competence, and outside the hallway seemed to lean in to listen. In the next second, an electric silence warned that the impossible was about to happen. The floor vibrated when the metal fell, and the world shrank to the size of a heart. "Get Dr. Carter away from the field," said Meridith without raising her voice. It was a calm command that cut through panic like a sharp scalpel. The resident hesitated, but her eyes were a harbor in the storm. "Maintain pressure, suction with me, metronome rhythm." Humiliation, which always haunted her badge, took a full step back. Without knowing it, everyone started breathing to the beat of her courage. "Debakey?" she asked, and the hand found the right hand. "Pressure 92/60ths," the anesthesiologist alerted, already rebalancing. "Got it. We'll stabilize and move by micrometers." A leader's stance. There, the lesson wasn't a shout. It was precision and humanity in the same pulse. She read the field like a secret map. Focus, team. The secret is simple. Every gesture counts. The beep sang again, less sharp, obeying a steady hand. And the room understood a new center of gravity had just been born. Perfuser adjusted, came dry but steady from the left. "Thank you." Meridith didn't skimp on kindness. That saves lives too. Scalpel 11. Suction. The sequence flowed like a familiar song. The resident trembled. "Shh. Breathe with me, okay? 1, 2, 3. And he calmed. The field cleared, the edges of fear slipped out of frame. Humiliation tried to enter with the old question, "Who are you?" "The person who's here now," she answered without needing to say it out loud. "Flow adequate," the perfusionist confirmed, reading the tide. "Great. Advancing millimeter by millimeter, no heroics. Method over ego." The lesson gleamed. Courage isn't haste. It's sustained precision. Without knowing it, the corridors started whispering her name. "Meridith, do you want me to—" the resident began. "Hold the clamp like we practiced. You've got this," said with real belief. And real belief in that moment was worth more than a wall of diplomas. The director lay motionless, but the story found a new pulse. Clear view, safe angle. Meridith saw it like someone who'd been there before. Scalpel, clamp, suture. The cadence turned chaos into procedure. The anesthesiologist kept her voice like a lighthouse, saturation stable. "Good." Meridith laid calm over the team like a blanket. Humiliation shriveled. Competence doesn't argue, it resolves. "There's a small lateral bleed point," she spotted at first. Agreed, the perfusionist was already anticipating the curve. "I'll need precise exposure. Gentle traction just to the edge." "Done," the resident answered, now part of the same collective breath. The lesson took root. Leadership is making room for others inside the miracle. Minimal suction, the noise gave way to a clear view. Clamp, hemostasis, her move was clean, almost invisible. Without knowing it, the line between craft and destiny snapped. And destiny, when it recognizes its owner, opens the door without a sound. "How's Carter?" she asked, eyes never leaving the field. "Under observation, pale but conscious," said the anesthesiologist. "Good, take care of him, I'll take care of this." Clear division, no empty heroics. The team nodded, as if finding solid ground in a flood. 4-0 suture, low angle, and the stitch landed like the right note on a violin. Humiliation couldn't find a place because nothing is louder than the essential. Patient's pressure slowly rising confirmed the perfusionist. "Excellent," Meridith breathed to the monitor's tempo. The word millionaire crossed her mind, not as wealth, but as an abundance of life. Being a millionaire here meant paying back someone's hope. A little more traction, gentle, she guided, soft as a teacher. "Like this?" The resident wanted certainty. Like that, and like that became a masterclass in a single syllable. That's the lesson. Greatness fits in short words when the hands know how to speak. And her hands spoke loudly, without losing their tenderness. A bead of sweat threatened Carter's eyebrow. "Gauze?" he asked, and someone touched his forehead with reverence. "Thank you. Let's go on." The rhythm didn't break, not even out of courtesy. The director, without knowing it, had his chest in the hands of the invisible girl. The invisible girl who was now lighting up the room with posture and preparation. Minimal suction. Good. The field turned crystal clear. "Ready for the critical point," she announced. "No theatrics." In hospitals, news always runs faster than feet. Outside, the hallway held its breath. Inside, the air obeyed Meridith. Humiliation pressed its forehead to the wall and asked to come back in. But the secret had a new owner. The one in charge is the one who solves it. "Full focus, team," she reinforced, voice warm and steady. "Full focus," the room echoed like a choir. The lesson etched into the tile. Courage spreads when it meets method. And method in that minute gave a name to the impossible. Monitor adjusted. Situation controlled, said the anesthesiologist. Let's seal this point. No rush, no excess, Meridith guided. The resident held his breath, hand almost frozen in the air. Drop your shoulder, she whispered, the same friend even in hell. He let go and the instrument obeyed. Good now, suture. Small turn, don't force it. Got it, came the answer, tasting like victory. Humiliation meowed softly. No one opened the door. The lesson continued. Excellence doesn't humiliate, it elevates. Pressure normalizing gradually confirmed the perfusionist. We're on the right track, said Meridith, but she didn't smile. Not yet. People who know how to celebrate also know how to wait for the right minute. Without realizing it, the team was learning something else from her. Restraint. In a storm, save your movements. On calm ground, save your ego. And when the sun shows up, it recognizes who stayed standing. I'll need more light on the lower quadrant, she asked. The circulator adjusted the lamp with watchmaker precision. Now it's perfect. The word perfect came without perfume, only accuracy. Parameters stable, said the anesthesiologist, a professional amen. Then let's finish the correction. The tone of someone who knows the way home. Humiliation felt like an unresolved childhood memory. Here the present had a different grammar. Clamp. Step. Release. The microscopic ballet happened without a squeak. Excellent, doctor. Meridith slipped from the resident. She didn't correct him. The world would correct itself. The lesson shown. The title arrives when the work is already a title. Final hemostasis check. Eyes like a scanner. Clear, the perfusionist confirmed, relieved. Then let's move to provisional closure. And the director's heart answered with a rhythm that sounded almost grateful. For a second, the whole room heard its own silence. A pause that didn't fit in the protocol or the statistics. Breathe. Meridith said, giving humanity back to the procedure. Breathing is a tool too. Sometimes it saves the caregivers. Carter is stable in the next room, someone said from the doorway. Good. She nodded, sincere. A good win doesn't need a rival to lose. Humiliation tried to whisper, you're not a doctor. The secret replied, today you're what the patient needs. Final count verification, she led, armoring safety. Count correct. It's the ritual that keeps the ghosts away. The lesson landed. Safety is love with a technical name. Perfect. Let's close this phase. Hands obeyed in a dance that forgot fatigue. Without knowing it, someone outside was already typing. The nurse saved the director. And words like that usually change the architecture of a destiny. Meridith, do you want me to call the chief substitute? The resident asked. Call, yes. The chain of command has to be fully restored. Leadership that grows gives the chair back once the house is safe. Meanwhile, I'll keep the field under control, she wrapped up. The smell of alcohol mixed with relief without turning into euphoria. Final read of parameters, she requested, checking each screen. All within a good range, said the anesthesiologist with a restrained smile. Humiliation packed its bags. The room had no space for it anymore. Thank you, team. Yes, thank you. Greatness is plural too. Meridith. The resident began, eyes shining. We'll talk later, okay? She saved the tears for the right hour. The lesson stood in the center. Respect is built in hard moments. Can I record that you took over the field? Someone asked. Record whatever's true. And the truth fit entirely inside that line. Without knowing it, the next door was already creaking on its hinges. They started cleaning the field, organizing the table, catching their breath. Clock threatened to return to the ordinary pace of ordinary days. Someone informed the board the procedure remained stable, she directed. The voices in the hallway turned into a calm sea after a storm. We need to speak to the family. Honestly and with care, she said. Caring for someone's pain is also part of the oath, even without a diploma. Humiliation now felt like a distant echo in a never-ending corridor. The final lesson of that minute. You become necessary when you decide to be. Meridith, the anesthesiologist called, with a new respect in her mouth. Yes? The way you held the room, she didn't finish. She didn't need to. The way we held the room, Meridith corrected, sharing the miracle. Without knowing it, a hallway legend was being born, the kind time loves to repeat. But legends have aftermath, and aftermath asks for answers. And outside, the director, about to wake, would ask the question that could turn everything upside down. When the morning light touched the window, the director opened his eyes. The white ceiling looked like an old acquaintance returning without warning. Where am I? Jonathan Reed asked, voice rough from disuse. Recovery unit, sir, answered the floor nurse. A beat kept a shy, stubborn rhythm. His body ached like someone back from a war no one saw. The surgery. Did it go well? He insisted, fishing for memories. The floor nurse glanced at the resident in the doorway. It did, she said, leaving the rest hanging in the air. The silence carried a secret the size of the entire hospital. Reed, unknowingly, searched for the name of a familiar hero. He expected to hear Dr. Carter, a signature carved into the corridors. Instead, he got water, soft light, and a half-truth. Call the board. I need details, he asked, adjusting himself. And the hallway seemed to hold its breath before telling the story. The resident stepped in, young face, big respect in his eyes. Sir, there was an unforeseen event during the procedure, he began. Say it, Reed cut in, a director even lying down. Dr. Carter fell ill intra-op and had to be taken out. The words fell ill sliced the air like a cold blade. Then who finished? He asked, choosing calm with forceps. The resident swallowed hard, like someone handing over a bomb. The scrub nurse took over until the substitute arrived. Scrub nurse? Reed arched an eyebrow, skeptical and curious. The room felt too small for so much information at once. Humiliation and pride crossed the corridor, fighting for a seat. Her name, he asked without raising his voice. Meridith Torres, the young man answered, like someone announcing destiny. The beep suddenly sounded like a muffled applause, and the director understood that the day's lesson would arrive without a diploma. The news spread through the boardroom like fire through dry straw. Some frowned. Others tried to muffle the subject, the hospital policy. Someone began, already apologizing. The hospital policy is to save lives, Reed cut in. He asked for the chart, the timing, the names, the chronology. The paper told what the walls had tried to hide. Without realizing it, each signature confirmed a new map for the house. I want to see the OR recording and the team report, he ordered. The footage showed steady hands, a calm voice, precision like a metronome. Who is that woman? Whispered one board member, impressed. The same one most people ignore in the elevator, another replied. Humiliation appeared as a background character in every frame. At last, the secret had a face. Meridith, the one who gets things done. Reed took a deep breath, the kind that marks a turning point, and he decided the story wouldn't end with polite applause. Meridith was summoned to the boardroom, heart racing, steps short. They want to see me? She asked the messenger, half suspicious. The hallway, that old judge, seemed to measure her courage. The board and Dr. Reed himself, he answered, almost smiling. She fixed her hair, washed her hands, out of habit and faith. You did what you had to do, she whispered to herself. Humiliation for a moment stepped back behind the lab coat. The door opened. White light, aligned chairs, attentive eyes. Miss Torres, the director called, no pomp, just truth. Sir, she replied, posture straight, voice that didn't ask permission. I watched the recording, he said, letting the phrase settle. Silence sat at the table, asking for respect. Your decision saved my life, he finished, simple as a prayer. A nurse by the wall smiled with her eyes, and the air took on a new scent. Justice, done quietly. Please, have a seat, Reed said, gesturing open-handed. Meridith obeyed, bringing with her the humility of routine. Tell me in your words what happened, he asked. The chief collapsed. The team froze. The field needed someone. I knew the protocol, the setup, the risks, she explained. So I took over until the replacement arrived, keeping it safe. Her sentences came trimmed. No embellishment, no heroism. And why did you do it? He asked, almost rhetorically. Because someone had to, she said, like saying water. The room smiled softly. The lesson fit in the palm of a hand. The secret wasn't rare talent, it was daily preparation. Humiliation can't survive where competence is home. Miss Torres, this hospital owes you a great deal, Reed declared. No, sir. The hospital owes the patient, she corrected gently. And that answer earned a permanent place in his respect. Reed leaned forward, eyes of a man choosing a new door. I want to make sure you have the tools you deserve. With all respect, sir, Meridith began, almost stepping back. No detours, he interrupted, a friend of time. I'm going to fund your entire medical degree, start to finish. The words fell like rain on cracked earth. Sir, I... She searched for a word that wouldn't come. Accept it, urged the anesthesiologist, watching from the corner moved. It's not a favor. It's a correction, Reed completed. Humiliation, poor thing, didn't even find a chair to sit on. Full scholarship, mentorship, and institutional support, he detailed. And flexible leave so you can study and still work shifts. The word millionaire flashed through her mind like destiny's inside joke. Not about money, about the abundance of open doors. And for the first time, Meridith believed the white coat had her name on it. Why me? She still asked, wanting final confirmation. Because you proved that the lesson comes before the title, he replied. And because you saved my life, he added, smiling, unceremonious. There are protocols, sir, rules, forms. She tried to slow him down. Then we'll create a new program, Invisible Bridges, starting with you, he said. The room filled with the sound of the future walking across cold tile. Scholarships for unseen professionals who prove excellence, he explained. Janitors, techs, scrub nurses, maintenance staff, he listed. Without knowing it, the hospital was being reborn right there. The board nodded in quiet agreement, gestures worth paragraphs. St. Patrick's true secret has always been the people no one sees, Reed concluded. And those who do the right thing without witnesses deserve the spotlight when the time comes. Meridith breathed like someone receiving a treasure map. Her eyes glowed, not with vanity but belonging. And the news wanted to leap out the window and spill into the streets. In the hallway, messages buzzed on nervous phones. It was her, the nurse saved the director, the whispers said. Some, ashamed, remembered all the times they'd ignored her in the elevator. I never noticed she always left last, confessed a resident. Humiliation had a new address now, visiting those who hadn't seen her. We underestimated Mary, admitted the perfusionist. We underestimated the lesson, added the anesthesiologist. The hospital, without realizing, lined up to unlearn and learn again. Don't call her doctor yet, said a skeptic. No one did. Life called her first, another replied. The secret to turning the game is that the game turns from within, and inside the corridors were already getting new nameplates. Let's handle the paperwork, said administration. Efficient. Meridith signed with hands that no longer trembled, and each signature felt like a small surgery on destiny. Back in his room, Reed asked to see her privately. I had to thank you before any press conference, he said. You don't owe me anything, sir, just opportunity, she replied. Opportunity is the currency of the future, he mused. I saw you teach without a professor's chair, he added. And humility when pride would have been easier, a rare record, that's all I needed to hear, she admitted softly. Humiliation found no gap in that honest conversation. We'll face criticism, Reed warned, a director even in gratitude. I know, Meridith smiled, someone long familiar with storms. But I've learned the difference between noise and signal, she said. The lesson slipped through the window and settled over the city. Be ready, he concluded. Your life's about to move up a floor. That's fine, she replied. I've already learned to take the stairs. And stairs, reward those who climb one step at a time. The paperwork advanced, the announcement was written, schedules aligned. 1 hour till the press conference informed communications. The rumor became news. The news became a speeding train. Meridith leaned against the corridor window and exhaled. Without knowing it, that glass reflected two versions of her. The one who carried humiliation in her pocket, and the one who turned that pocket into a badge of honor. A millionaire in possibilities, she joked to herself, smiling. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. God saw you, my daughter. I know, Mom, she whispered, heart in prayer. The elevator opened. The light of the auditorium called her name. Ready? Asked the anesthesiologist, clearing the way. Ready, Meridith answered, with steps that already knew how to dance. The secret was ready to be told, quietly but to the world. And on stage, an empty chair waited for a new badge. But what was about to happen in that auditorium would still shake the same old halls. The once cold corridors no longer diminished her. They seemed to applaud softly. Dr. Meridith Torres now began her shift like a beacon. Her name lived on the doors and in the conversations. Good morning, Chief, they said, with a respect you can't fake. She answered simply, not yet used to victories. Humiliation, now just a memory that taught her to walk lightly. The white coat fit her like a destiny well chosen. On her ID photo, a secret of sleepless nights was tucked away. Hours of study, quiet tears, stubborn faith. Rounds at 8, everyone, her calm voice organized the world. She knew where it hurt, where it healed, where to listen. The daily lesson remained the same, excellence with humanity. And every step reminded her, the beginning never defines the end. The hospital, once a distracted audience, now paid attention, because those who fix things earn a permanent address and trust. In her first staff meeting as chief, she opened with silence. A good silence, the kind that even lines up the chairs. Let's review protocols the way we review promises, she said. Spreadsheets on the screen, but her eyes on the whole team. Technique saves. Care keeps people safe, she repeated, both mantra and map. Humiliation outside the door couldn't find its badge anymore. Doctor, what about uncovered emergencies? Someone asked. No panic, method, flow, clarity, she answered, precise. Without knowing it, she was training people and fate at the same time. The lesson lived in details no one sees. Labeled forceps, labeled drawers, timed processes. This prevents mistakes and saves people from fear, she added. The board took notes, but the hallway had already approved. Thank you, Chief, a tech said, sincere voice. And a secret, respect grows where someone truly sees you. Her bedside visits were almost rituals of listening. How was your night? She asked. For real, the patient answered, hurting less just by being seen. Let's adjust your pain control and the room light, she decided. Humanity doesn't delay a shift, it organizes the chaos. Humiliation doesn't enter rooms where the door is open to dignity. Doctor, I'm afraid, an elderly patient confided. Me too, sometimes. Fear just doesn't get to be in charge, she said. The word millionaire flashed in her mind with a new meaning. A millionaire in time and presence in small right things. Recovery's secret? Patience plus short steps, she smiled. The team wrote down the lesson that never shows up in a protocol. Without knowing it, the hospital was learning a new language. Made of gentle touches, steady looks, clear decisions, and of a music that only plays when pain is respected. In a packed auditorium, she launched invisible bridges. Real meritocracy builds bridges, not walls, she began. Slides showed data, but the story did the heavy lifting. Housekeepers and training programs, techs on full scholarships. Overflowing talent still needs access, she explained. Humiliation was mentioned without being named, and everyone understood. Doctor, is this charity? A skeptic poked. No, it's operational justice, she replied, sharpening the concept. The board approved, and the city left that meeting a little different. Without knowing it, resumes were growing courage that minute. The lesson crossed the parking lot like warm wind. I applied. A cafeteria worker typed from the bus, crying. Meridith received the messages like someone getting discharged. Keep going, she said, no speech, hard at work. Because the miracles that matter become house policy. In the OR, room 3 learned a different pulse. I bring the table like I bring a map, she'd say. Scalpel, suture, clamp, a ballet with breathing in the right tempo. No heroes. We are a team, she reminded them, disarming egos. Humiliation lost its charm when the method shone. Doctor, can I try the suture? The resident asked. You can. Honest attempts build honest hands, she allowed. He missed by millimeters. She corrected millimeters, gently. Without knowing it, that becomes muscle memory, she taught. The planted lesson blooms and the next life saved. Excellent, the perfusionist said, proud of the team. Excellence is collective, she replied, no fireworks. The clock learned to respect safety's cadence, and the beep that once haunted them now ticked like a friendly metronome. The room, which had seen everything, also saw the impossible become routine. In the hallways, old skeptics changed their tone. Congratulations, Dr. Torres, they said, sincerity arriving late. She accepted it without storing fossils of resentment. This house is ours, and so is the responsibility, she repeated. Without knowing it, she eased their guilt and made room for growth. Humiliation retired, honored, but done teaching. What's the secret? A reporter asked, Mike eager. Treat the invisible as essential, she answered. Simple. The headline ran fast, but what stayed was the example. The word millionaire popped up on her phone again. Messages from people with new chances, new lives. That pays for any shift, she told her mother. God sees you, daughter. Her mother replied, a hug in her voice. The lesson was complete, but the story kept doing its job. Because a good future is practicing the right thing until it becomes habit. At 8 sharp, the surgery leadership huddled the team. Whiteboard, markers, clear goals, and honest coffee. Case review, errors and near misses, she proposed. Transparency doesn't expose, it heals. And culture heals destinies. No blame, with responsibility, she signed, fine print and all. Humiliation can't survive where people truly learn. My turn to admit a near miss, she shared, human. The group listened and grew an inch in maturity. Clear lesson. What we keep quiet repeats. It's what we name improves. A good silence, the kind that glues principles to the wall. Now a new double-check protocol, she announced. Without knowing it, she prevented ghosts that will never have names. Thank you, Chief, said the scrub nurse, eyes wet. Thank you, all of us, for holding the line every day, she returned. And the hallway smiled because justice has a sound too. One late afternoon, she stopped before a new door. Chief of Surgery, Dr. Meridith Torres, the plaque read. She traced the letters like touching a memory. "Mom, we made it," she whispered, starting a video call. "I knew it," her mother laughed, miracle in the same old voice. Being a millionaire there meant belonging and peace on the pillow. "Will you promise something to the new residents?" her mother teased. "I promise a place to grow without fear," she answered. Without knowing it, she was defining the house's hidden curriculum. Humiliation, tucked away in a drawer of valuable lessons. "The secret is to be necessary when no one's looking," she said, and the call sat quiet for a few seconds. The lesson shone in the corridor like light that once lived in the night. She breathed, ready for the next round. Because what starts with pain can end teaching you how to love. In the auditorium, they called her up for a short talk. "Did St. Patrick's change you?" the moderator asked. "I changed the way I am at St. Patrick's," she replied. Light laughter, sincere applause, grateful eyes. "I'll repeat it always. Position doesn't define your value. What defines it is what you deliver when no one's betting on you. Humiliation can be a starting point, not the finish line. And hidden talent is a secret that costs dearly. Without knowing it, someone in the last row decided to start studying today. The lesson left in copies across the city quietly. "Doctor, last question, how do you want to be remembered?" As a bridge, she said, "No pose, pain on one side, care on the other." The audience stood, but she stepped down like someone returning to a shift, because applause is beautiful. Saving lives is urgent. And urgency had been her language since that first worn-out badge. She walked again through the corridors where she'd once been invisible. Now greetings had names and the warmth of home. "Chief, there's a new resident who wants to learn from you," they said. "Bring her," she answered, smiling like someone who recognizes her own beginning. They stopped in the quiet room, a place for small miracles. "What do I need to know?" the young woman asked, wide-eyed. "That humiliation doesn't own you. It's your raw material," she taught. "And that the lesson is never late for the one who shows up every day." "Secret?" the resident pressed, conspiratorial. "Do the simple things perfectly, even if you don't know whether anyone will applaud, and be a millionaire in presence where courage is missing." The young woman nodded, taking down more than words. "Now, washed hands and head high," she finished. She turned to the channel's camera and smiled softly. "If this story touched you, like the video. Subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to hear from you too."